Okay. Okay, so the review is as follows. Bottom line, without repeating everything of last week, but the bottom line. So there's an argument in the Mishnah between the sages and Rabbi Gamliel. And the question is, what is primary? In Tefillah B'tzibur, I'm just going to raise this. In Tefillah B'tzibur, in the davening with the minyan, what's the primary maila? What's its virtue? It's the fact that individuals come together and daven, many individuals, a group, the tzibur, or is it the shliach tzibur? So the argument is, Rabbi Gamliel says the main thing is the shliach tzibur. So much so that if it's the main thing is the shliach tzibur, so then why are people davening before the Amidah? It's only in order, in essence, in principle, it's an order for the shliach tzibur to arrange his prayer, especially in the time of, particularly, this is said in the time of the Mishnah when the Sidurim weren't written down, it was all by heart. So he had to review it so that when he would say it, it would be fluent. That's why everybody else is davening. But really, his davening is the main davening. Whereas the Chachamim hold that the role of the shliach tzibur is only to discharge those people who don't know how to daven. But those who know how to daven, then the shliach tzibur does not discharge their obligation. They discharge their own obligation. So that's why he's there. He's there to discharge those who cannot. There's even an opinion that he does so even for those who aren't present. He's appointed by the congregation to lead services, to daven. So that's the essential argument. Now, we are peeling back the layers and understanding the depth of these two positions. Level one, the debate is what is greater, what is more significant, quantity or quality? And in this very debate, Rabbi Gamliel and the sages figure prominently about this very subject, without repeating the whole story. But the bottom line is that at one time, Rabbi Gamliel, a scion of the house of David, he was the Nasi, but they removed him from his position. He was the leader of the Jewish people, the Nasi. They removed him because of a conflict with Rabbi Yeshua, and in his stead, they placed Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, so when he was instated as the Nasi, literally means the prince or leader. More literally, it means elevated person. That's what the word Nasi means, elevated. So when he was appointed, we'll use the term Nasi, so there are many changes that happened as a result of his appointment. And one of them was, says the Gemara, that the guard that had been placed at the door of the Beis HaMedrash, this is the house of study where the Chachamim convened. This is where the Gemara is happening. So there was a guard. The Gamliel had appointed a guard and only admitted select students. Not anybody was admitted into the Beis HaMedrash. He had to be toichai kebara. His outside had to reflect his inside. He couldn't just look the part. He had to be the part. However, when Rabbi Gamliel was removed from his position, so that day, many hundreds of benches were added to the Beis HaMedrash. So we see here, it's the same point. Rabbi Gamliel was of the position that quality is more significant. The main thing is quality, not numbers. That's why when he was Nasi, when he was the leader, so he was very discriminate as to who to admit into the Beis HaMedrash. And the sages held, consistent with their view about davening, tefillah, b'tzibur, that the main thing is the tzibur. And therefore, it is quantity over quality. Now we're going to go further. So now Oiz Gimel, chapter 3, in our text. So in summary again, the issue at hand here, which we're going to explore deeper, is quantity versus quality. Now there is going to zero in on the quantity-quality dynamic of a minyan, of a tzibur. Let's use the term tzibur which is the term we explained last week. For those who are here, I want to tell you that the word tzibur, which means community, has three primary letters: tzadik, beis, reish. Tzadik, tzadikim, beis, beinanim, reish, rishoyim. A community, of course, comprises all levels, but more to the point, a community is incomplete if the rishoyim, the wicked, quote unquote, are not admitted and not part of it. That's a definition of a community, is everyone. Our sages go so far as to say that, particularly in a time of distress, but at all times, if the prayers of Israel do not include the wicked, then the prayers aren't heard. That's how significant. At any rate, so now we're going to zero in on Tefillah b'tzibur. Let's have a look together. We read the Hebrew text and translate. But first, a gulp of coffee. As we look at the virtue, we're looking now at the virtue, now zeroing in on the virtue of the tzibur itself, the community. Putting the shliach tzibur is the chazan, the proper term is shliach tzibur, ambassador, emissary, or proxy of the congregation. Now, talking about the tzibur. So looking at the virtue of the tzibur, yeshna shtei hamaylas. Within the tzibur itself, the community, there are two virtues. Hein shel kamas ve'hen shel echos. There is a quantitative virtue and a qualitative, and they are Aleph, one. Tzibur, a community, mishava, is created dafke meribui bekamos. You create a community only when there's numbers. You need at least, in italics, masorak uponim Yisrael. You've got 10 people. All right, so that's the first point. The virtue of the community is that many come together. Beis, at least 10. 10 represents, mind you, the entire community. Because, why number 10? I mean, it's derived from the story of the spies, mind you, this week. Just as an aside, where do we get that an Ada, a congregation, is 10? And the Torah says that my name is sanctified in an Ada, another word for congregation. Actually, that's congregation, usually translated. How do we derive it? That's the number is 10, because there are 12 spies. And at one point, Moishe, Hashem says, how much longer will this evil congregation vex me? There were two of them were kosher, Yeshua and Kalev. So a congregation is 10. That's how we learn that an Eidah congregation is 10, which is very strange. We're learning the virtue of what makes a congregation 10 people from a terrible story of the 10 sinful spies. They were all sinful, well-intended.
Can I just ask, why wouldn't it be from Avram when he asked about Saddam if there's not 10? Like that would define a community.
They weren't called an Eidah then. He just asked for 10. There's no indication that means a community. Here, the Torah uses, Hashem calls them an Eidah. So we don't know that that's an Eidah there. Yeah. So, but that's the reason, like halachically, the source of it. But why the number 10? Because, as you all would know, right? The soul is made up of 10 faculties, 7 emotional, 3 intellectual, 7 emotional. So 10 represents every type. Although we have all 10, some people excel in one, some people excel in all of them. The emotion, in even intellectual process, there's different kinds of intellect, creative, original, analytical. There'll be the bina, das, application, whatever. So the point is, we all have all 10, and the different kinds of people, there are 10 different types, 7 emotional types, but 10 in total, because we all have these 10 faculties. That's the reason why the number 10, the pnimius, the inner reason, represents all of the entire community, because symbolically they're all represented there by 10 people. Again, we're not answering the question why we would learn it from a terrible story. Like Elsa says, surely a positive story to teach us the virtue of the community. But it also points to that there's something, use the word magical, but we're going to learn about it, unique and special about a community, even if they're not such wonderful people. Again, the 10 spies were well intended, but there's certainly a power. When people get together, they create, as we're going to see, an energy that's greater than the sum of the parts. That's the point. And it takes 10 to do that at least, representing what the 10 faculties of the soul, and for that matter, the 10 attributes of Hashem, which the 10 utterances which bring all of creation into being. But let's get ahead. Let's go further. All right. So the first thing he said was the virtue of the tzibur is you've got a lot of people coming together, at least 10. Base, the second thing, which I kind of said now, is Hatzir of Shel Asara Yisrael, when 10 people come together. I'm just going to put you on mute, guys, but please unmute yourselves as you wish to comment. Welcome your comments and questions. So the second thing, Hatzir of Shel Asara Yisrael Mishav Metzias Chadash. It's not that when 10 people come together or more, we've got a group, but they create a new entity. Again, what they create is bigger than the sum of their parts. It's not just 10. It's something bigger than 10. Chativa achas shel eda kedosha. We have a new entity, a community, a holy congregation. Shezeh shivas be'echos. That's already pointing to within the tzibur itself a qualitative virtue. They've created, by coming together, a new entity, something called a community. So let's continue now. And therein lies the distinction between the community davening. When you say the Amidah privately, just to remind you, when we say tefillah, halachically, we're referring to the Amidah. The Amidah is the essence of tefillah. Everything else augments it. Again, Shema is not part of davening itself. We're not praying, not even talking to Hashem when you say the Shema. It's a declaration of your faith. It's placed in proximity with davening, but it's two very separate mitzvahs that we're observing each morning, is tefillah and kriya shema. At any rate, so when we say tefillah, just remember we're talking about the Amidah, which is said privately and then repeated. So this is the difference between tefillah hasibur shekilele says tefillah same shel kol echad v'echad misroel mi'at tzibur v'ni atzmai. So this is the difference between when the tzibur davens, the tefillah hashatz, and then the shliach tzibur davens. Tefillah hatzibur yesh la hamayla shel ribu yakamus. When the community is davening, so there's a community. There's a great and very symbolic quantity. Many voices coming together. When 10 Jews pray together. On the other hand, in the tefillah of the shliach tzibur, what we're looking to there is yeshmayla ha'echos. That emphasizes the echos, the quality, in brackets. In addition to the fact, in brackets, you may be surprised to learn this law, maybe not. Here it is. Not everybody can be a shliach tzibur, or ought to be. Halachically. Shliach tzibur, in the first instance, even the halacha says, if you can't find such a person, then whoever can do the job, fine. But in the first instance, to be a shliach tzibur, you need certain qualities reckoned out in the Gemara. He has to be someone that it's liked by the community. He has to be a scholar. Most importantly, he has to be his character impeccable and respected, even in his youth. Even as an older person, there should be nothing in his younger years that would stain his reputation. Even physical appearance has to be such that people like and not repulsed by. So they're very strict conditions in the first place. Again, the halach is you try and find such a person, but if you don't have, then whoever can, here in MPC and other places, we're begging people to go to daven. Anybody, every Jew is kosher. But in the first place, the point being, we appreciate why. If you're representing everybody, then it's got to be someone that everyone wants this person to represent them, having all of these virtues. So therefore, that certainly points to quality. Therefore, in his davening, even as an individual, this is a greater qualitative virtue than the ordinary worshiper. That's number one. So he is all about quality. The community, the congregation is about quantity. Moreover, how do you say to Mizo? Moreover, here's really the beautiful part. In Yonesh Shliach Tzibur, what is the Shliach Tzibur? What he is Shehu Koilel, it's a quotation from the Talmud, from the Gemara. Pifiyos Amcha Beis Yisrael. He is the mouthpiece. Literally, he incorporates the mouths, the lips of your people Israel. Shonasa, according here now from the Alter Rebbe, Shonasa Shliach L'Kulam becomes their emissary. Shepiv Kipiyam, his mouth is theirs. In such a way, Shekol Teva Shom Mispalel. Every word he says, he utters, it's as if everybody's saying it. Shots, that's how we say it in brief, Shliach Tzibur, through the mouth of the Shliach Tzibur. So it's not just, we have davened, now Shliach Tzibur also davens. We're davening again through here. It coalesces, all of our prayers coalesce in a singular prayer. Hainu, shebetfilas hashliach tzibur murchezes, concentrated, umuchedes, and united, tfilasim shel hatzibur, the prayer of the many, kamoshu nasim mitzias achas, it's become one entity, Eida Kedosha. It's a new entity embodied in him. Shezeo geder acher, this is a whole different definition, a whole different level. Be'echos hatfila, in the quality of the prayer, afilu lagabe atfilas riba mispalim shebetzibur, even greater than, and a different quality than the voices of the many. It's a singular voice. In other words, in the voices that we might say, in the voices of the many, there's a harmony. Harmony. That's a great virtue. They come together as one and they pray together. It's a harmonious prayer. But in the prayer, the tefillah of the Shliach Tzibur, it's not harmony. It's one. It's essential prayer. That means he's expressing a level within all of them where they are all one. There's a deep level of our neshama, of our heart, where we are one Jew, all of us. And that's embodied in the Shliach Tzibur. So let's continue deeper now. This is the argument between the sages and Rabbi Gamliel. What's greater, the Shliach Tzibur, the Shliach Tzibur or the Tzibur? The Chachamim hold that great quantity outweighs quality. The harmony, the greater the harmony. Therefore, they said, the main virtue when the community comes together is the community. The Shliach Tzibur for the one who doesn't know how to daven. But otherwise, it's your prayer that you lend your voice to the harmonious offering, to the great symphony of the many voices. That's the beauty of Tefillah B'Tzibur. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel holds that no, that's beautiful, but greater still is the virtue of quality. One prayer. That's even greater than the communal. Because qualitatively it's much deeper. It's one. It's the core voice of everybody. The entire tzibur is invested in him as well. I want you to look at footnote 19. Fascinating footnote. You all have it? I'll say it in the Hebrew. Actually, I'm not going to read. I'll just say the English to make it easier. I won't read the Hebrew and translate. Although it's very short. Shoin et seit nehi. Al pi hamavu b'fnim, in light of the above, will understand Yom Tov becomes sweet. It's an expression that Rabbi uses when you get an insight that is so beautiful that it's called sweet. That requires discussion of all adjectives. Why sweet? At any rate, so it becomes sweet. Gamatam, also the reason, b'pnimis and on a deeper level, as follows: Shalocha Rabbi Gamliel bebracha shel Rosh Hashanah Hashem HaKippurim. The Gemara rules. What's the final ruling? So the Gemara rules like this: that year-round Allah is like the sages, meaning every individual should seek to daven with the minyan, but it's your prayer that counts. The shliach tzibur is only there for the one who doesn't know how to daven. Don't rely on him. You are obligated to an individual to daven when everybody says the tefillah. That's halach like the Chachamim. But the Gemara says when it comes to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, particularly Rosh Hashanah, halach is like Rabbi Gamliel. Now, what's the halachic reason? Why would it change? Rashi explains, because Rosh Hashanah, we have these very long extra prayers, Malchis, Zichroines, and Shofars. This long, Rosh Hashanah Musaf is the longest tefillah of the entire year. And it's the essence, the heart of all of the tefillahs of Rosh Hashanah is the Musaf, like the Musaf of Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. Any day, the Musaf is the heart of it. That's what expresses the uniqueness of the day. So since it's very long and people are not familiar with it, so then even the one who knows how to daven, but to be able to master the tefillah of Rosh Hashanah, that's already a very difficult achievement. So then everybody agrees that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, everybody relies on can rely on the shliach tzibur. Again, today you all have a machzer, and it's easy. It's a time when there was no machzer. So even the scholar who is fluent and who knows relies on the shliach tzibur. That's the pragmatic reason, simply because of the length and complexity of the prayer, and it's only said once a year. Even scholars are not expected to have mastered it. The shliach tzibur did. That's his job. So that is the reason halachically. Now, everything we said till now, we'll understand the deeper reason. Rosh Hashanah, in brackets, what's Rosh Hashanah, in brackets coming? V'chen Yom Kippurim, and likewise Yom Kippur, which is called in scripture, Yechezkel, Rosh Hashanah, because they're really one extension. Those 10 days are one extension. Rosh Hashanah. It's the head of the year. What's the head? It's the head, and the rest of the year is like a spiritual body. Like Kol Hashana, relative to the rest of the year, which are like the limbs. The limbs of a body are the rest of the day. The head, what's the head? The head governs and is the life force of the entire body. By the nervous system, it animates and gives sensitivity and life and function to every limb and organ of the body. It's through the head. That's what Rosh Hashanah is. So that's the Shliach Tzibur. The Shliach Tzibur is the core essence, the head of the people. He's the Nasi of the people, as it were. So Rosh Hashanah, which is all about a deep level of where we are all one, it's the head of the year. Therefore, it touches the head of our souls, or the heart. It's 2 levels. Or where we are all one. So therefore, the halacha is like Rabban Gamliel, when Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Because that's all about the Rosh, the head, or the Nasi. And Nasi is a neshama, is the brain, the head. The word Rebbe stands for Rosh B'nai Yisrael, the head of the people. The Rambam describes him as the heart. These primary organs whose entire entity is animate and life for the body. The whole identity is the people. They are the core essence of the people. So Rosh Hashanah, that's what that day is all about. That's when that truth for the year, for the people, for the world is revealed. Therefore, Rosh Hashanah, the Allah is like who? Rabbi Gamliel. Okay, let's go further. Bit of feedback. We following so far, friends? A heads up, a hands up.
Yeah, can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Why is it important to have a choice of one or the other? Because just like a king can't be king unless he has disciples. You can't have a minion without a group of people. You can't have the husband without having the group there. So like, to me, they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So why can't they reflect an equal standing? Why does one have to precede the other?
The question, as you point out correctly, you're right. You need to have both. The question is, what serves what? What serves
why
what?
can't-
Because it's a very practical question, as we'll see in further illustrations. It's a general message for life. When you're often going to face a choice of quantity and quality, which one do you take? It's a critical question, a very practical question. So it's debated here in the Tefillah B'tzibur, but the ramification, and practically you need both. You're right. You can't have the Shliach Tzibur without the Tzibur. But the ramifications are enormous in life. And we face these questions all the time, as we're going to see, particularly when it comes to education. So their debate is, and even when we're davening, it's like, you got to do both, right? When you daven b'tzibur, you've got to say your prayer. In fact, nowadays, since we all have a machzeh, and for other reasons as well, even though the halacha is Rabbi Gamliel, does that mean you can? The halacha is like him, right? Rosh Hashana. Does that mean Rosh Hashana, Yom Kippur, you come to shul, don't say anything. You don't have to say your Amidah and wait for the Shliach Tzibur. No, the custom is that everybody davens. Even though the halacha on Rosh Hashanah is like Rabbi Gamliel, that he discharges the obligation of everybody. And the sages agree with him. Yes, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah. Nonetheless, we all daven. So, again, because we have a machzeh, there are other reasons as well. But what am I saying? So the question is, in the davening, there has to be, the question is, it's a very sublime spiritual level, what is the essence? What's the essence of the davening experience? Do we want you to come out with, this is the main thing, a harmonious state? What is a harmonious state? Harmonious state is you and I are different, but we complement each other. That's what a Tefillah B'tzibur is. We're different, but we complement. That's the beauty of the communal congregation. Again, each one presenting a different sphere, harmony. That's what the sages want. Appreciate the harmony of the Jewish people. We all contribute to each other. And when Gamliel is a higher madrege, he says, coming out of davening, B'tzibur, it's got to be more than harmony. You've got to feel one with your fellow Jew. You've got to transcend all differences completely. It's a higher madrege. It's a higher level. So in practical terms, as you know, you're asking the question, so you're prompting me to think about this. So thank you for that. Like a practical difference right here in this Tefillah B'tzibur, aside from we'll see other practical differences. Like the idea of shlichus. To view your fellow Jew as we're one great family and harmonious, good. That's a beautiful thing. And you won't look askance at every Jew, and you'll see every Jew's virtue and how they contribute. But that's not going to inspire you to pick up and devote your life for the rest of your life for Jews you've never seen. What will is the Nasi perspective. Rabbi Gamliel, we are one. We are one. And therefore, it's no sacrifice to go to the end of the world. This Jew is you. It engenders a deeper, and since you're asking, you're making me, consider this further as we're talking. On a deep level, it might be said that the Chachamim are saying, Rabbi Gamliel, it's wonderful, but nobody's holding by your level. So at least let's all be harmonious and live in peace with each other and appreciate each other and each one's contribution and welcome and be harmonious, united, at least that. And then there's Rabbi Gamliel, we're all one total devotion. And we can see, mind you, the Chachamim can see to Rabbi Gamliel's position. They say, Rosh Hashanah, that's your day. Rosh Hashanah is the day where it's one singular voice. That's the Rosh, right? So it's a practical thing. What's demanded of every Jew? Harmonious with your fellow Jew, or we demand of you, pick up and go to the end of the world. So it depends where you're holding. At least harmonious. That's the Chachamim. At least that. At least that level of unity. But then there also has to be, you should know that this level of absolute devotion exists and support it, at least if you're not going to be doing it. And to some degree, strive to it. Okay, thank you for your question. You've added nuance.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like the month of Elul aids everyone to try to reach the level of Gamliel for Rosh Hashanah that we should be. And by the time of Yom Kippur, when they open the final gate, we really feel like one. But that's the only time we can actually feel that unity. The rest of the year, unfortunately, when we start, okay, it makes sense.
Right, the rest of the year, at least harmony.
Yes,
at least harmonious. If you can't feel it, you're one, because it's a very deep level of the neshama to be in touch with. But at least a level of Avos Yisrael where we're harmonious tzibur, everybody, tzaddikim, benyan, mishayim. Yeah. Let's go a little bit further as an introduction to next week, which is fascinating.
Rabbi, I just wanted to ask one question.
All right, sure.
Why, if you want harmony, and you want everybody to be together, why would Hashem want the wicked in there?
Otherwise, it's not harmonious. Where's the harmony? He's a yid too. The orchestra, you need the cymbals.
But they would talk. They would upset the congregation. They would.
If he's coming to shul and he's talking and upsetting the congregation, then it's my fault. My prayer is not inspiring enough to want to make him join it.
But why would he even want?
If he made the effort to come to shul already, then we should be, those who are there should be providing such a symphony, such a beautiful music. He's not going to want to talk. He wants to join and lend his voice too.
But why would he even want to come?
Pardon?
Why would he even want to come?
Because there should be a welcoming place where he feels his voice contributes. We got to make him feel welcome there.
Okay.
You got to invite him, her, make them feel welcome. And then when they come, they just, it's such a, there's a beautiful music being played here. Everybody is contributing. I want to be part of this as well. No one's going to want to talk if the atmosphere was the way it should be. So the shul, the so-called regulars who are there, it's their responsibility to make it such that a newcomer says, wow, this music is beautiful. I want to be a part of it.
Okay.
All right. So
we'll let them in.
Again. What's that?
We'll let them in.
All right, let's go a little bit further. Okay, let me just tell you what's coming now, and this will be the introduction to next week. What comes out now, we've just learned there are two disputes between Rabbon Gamliel and the Chachamim. One was about the students. Is it quantity or is it quality? And the second, Tefillah b'tzibur, is the main thing, the shliach tzibur, quality, or the tzibur, quantity. Now, we just pointed out now, it's essentially the same argument. So here's what comes next. If it's the same argument, then you don't have to restate your position in the other case. We'll know what you hold. In other words, from the story, let's say, of the students, whether we admit everybody or only those who meet this very high criteria, we would know surely to apply that. The same principle to apply is what's most important in the communal davening, the shliach tzibur or the community, or vice versa. If we know what they hold there, we will deduce what they would say, how they would view education. What kind of model should the yeshiva be, or at least the upper level, exclusive or everybody? Why do they have to state their position in both places? It's because they're not the same. And there's reason to argue. If they only said it in one case, then in the other case, all would agree. And we wouldn't have those differing of position. So in other words, we're going to take even deeper these two views, even deeper, and explain why they are expressed in these two areas, even though bottom line the same thing. They're not bottom line the same thing. They are different. And therefore, the difference in the two scenarios, even though generally it's the same issue, quantity versus quality, we're going to see that they are different and hence emerge with a much more subtle and even deeper understanding of this whole discussion of quantity versus quality, shliach tzibur versus the tzibur. Okay, I think we'll stop here. What is actual time? 9:12. Yeah, so 3 minutes to Shachris. Okay, so good to see everybody. It's very, see, let me tell you something. This is an example of the interplay. Elsa was saying the interplay between, is an profound connection between the tzibur, the community, and the shliach tzibur. This is evidenced also in, at least for me, I'm sure every teacher, a teacher and students. So I'm kind of the shliach tzibur. I've learned the subject, not because I just happen to learn this and I have an education, so I can share this with you, right? But in some measure, I'm the shliach tzibur and you're the community. And the fact is, when you all come, the more that come, that show interest, it inspires me. The many bring out a depth in the so-called teacher or the leader. And in fact, our sages say this in Pirkei Avos. I've learned much from my teachers, but from my students above all. That's not only, that simple meaning is because the students ask questions and as we, right? And the questions bring out, challenge the teacher, and you've got to think about, oh yeah, and it summons forth a deep understanding for the teacher of the subject matter just by teaching. And mind you, even if there are no questions, just the fact that you have to communicate it and express it compels, every teacher knows this, compels you to think about it and just naturally deeper and clearer than the way you have it in your own head. But aside from that, just I'm talking the numbers. When another person joins the shir, another person showing interest, it just has this effect on the teacher, and it's a better teaching experience. So there's an interplay between the tzibur and the shliach tzibur. Likewise, even literally the chazan, you're up there davening. So people are talking, and it's one thing. But when the people are davening with you and they're all lending their voice and they're singing, for the shliach tzibur opens up a whole depth of his own heart. So there's a profound interplay between the two. Again, but still the question, still the end is, walking away, what do we come away with? The power of the congregation or the power of the singular voice? And both are necessary, as we described earlier. All right, friends. So thank you for coming. And Be'ezrat Hashem will continue our journey next week. 10:15, you're all invited to the next year. The Mordechai Dov, Chernak, the Michael Chernak Sunday morning shir. That's going to be after davening at 10:15.
Shavua Tov, everybody.
Shavua Tov.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. Have a great day.